The one who's responsible for everything. Perhaps I'll start at the beginning. Every week, I travel to Psycho Corporate headquarters to have a meeting with Mr. Psycho about 𝙎𝙤𝙢𝙪𝙀. This time, I arrived a few minutes earlier than expected. I asked the secretary if it would be all right to begin the meeting early, but she refused. She told me that Mr. Psycho had another appointment right before mine, and that I'd have to wait my turn before I could see him. I took a seat and began to wait. That's when she walked into the room. It's been 10 years, but not a single day has gone by that I haven't thought about her. The one who ruined everything for me. I recognized her immediately. She had aged, but I could still tell it was her. She glanced in my direction for a moment, and our eyes met. She smirked, but said nothing to me. She walked straight through the waiting room and directly into Mr. Psycho's office, without even speaking a single word to the secretary. At first, I was speechless. Then I jumped out of my seat and asked the secretary to identify that woman. The secretary was silent for a few moments, and then gave me some generic platitude about how the details of Mr. Psycho's appointments must be kept strictly confidential. That didn't stop me from asking everything that came to mind. How long had that woman been coming here? How often? What business did she have here? But the secretary was like a stone wall that refused to budge. I couldn't just leave it at that. I left the waiting room and asked the nearest employees if they could help me. When they saw how distraught I was, they were eager to help, but when I asked them if they had seen that woman who just walked by, their attitudes changed in a heartbeat. They slowly turned away from me and returned to their work in silence. They ignored me, as if I wasn't even there. I haven't been treated like that since I was a schoolboy. I returned to the waiting room and paced back and forth anxiously, waiting for that woman to exit Mr. Psycho's office. I'd spent years fantasizing about an encounter like this one. I had rehearsed every single word I would say to her if I had an opportunity to speak with her again. I was fully prepared to tell her exactly how I felt about her actions 10 years ago. Then I heard the secretary's voice. Mr. Psycho will see you now. I was baffled. That woman was still in the office, wasn't she? Why would the secretary send me in there? I was confused, but eager to see that woman again. I approached the door to Mr. Psycho's office. I remember that my hand was actually trembling as I gripped the handle. I took a deep breath and opened the door to his office, expecting to see her standing there, but she wasn't. The only people in that room were Mr. Psycho and his son. I entered the office and looked around in confusion, wondering where that woman could have been hiding, but she was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Psycho asked me what was troubling me, and I told him exactly what was on my mind. That woman, the one who walked into your office a few minutes ago, where is she? When did she leave? But Mr. Psycho didn't reply. He only smirked, as if he was amused by the situation, and asked me to take a seat. He tried to talk about 𝙎𝙤𝙢𝙪𝙀, like usual, but I wasn't having any of it. I didn't want to let go of the subject, and I kept asking about that woman. Mr. Psycho's amusement quickly turned to irritation, and he firmly asked me to keep our conversation to the matter of 𝙎𝙤𝙢𝙪. Mr. Psycho can be quite imposing, even while remaining civil, and from that moment onward I was too scared to pursue the matter further. I dropped it, and we proceeded to have a standard meeting. As ever, Mr. Psycho's son stood behind his father in silence. Mr. Psycho had never told me the exact reason why he keeps his son at his side during business meetings. It's most likely that it's a form of training, exposing him to the type of interactions he'll be having on a daily basis once he inherits his father's empire. As the years passed, I've watched Mr. Psycho's son grow from a young boy into a young man, but I can count on one hand the number of times I've heard him speak. The meeting adjourned. I made one last attempt to bring up the subject of that woman, but Mr. Psycho interrupted me and bid me farewell. I knew that I wouldn't be able to get anything out of him, so I simply left. I questioned the secretary again, but nothing. I got nothing. I attempted to talk to the nearest employees, but they politely excused themselves. It was as if that woman was a taboo subject that no one was allowed to speak of, or that she was a mere hallucination, something I dreamt up. No, I didn't just imagine her. I saw her. I didn't catch her out of the corner of my eye. I didn't glimpse her for only a moment. We looked directly at each other, but what business would that woman have with Mr. Psycho? What could he possibly want from her? Why didn't the secretary acknowledge her when she walked in, and how did she leave his office? There was only one way to leave that room, and I was standing right in front of it. It doesn't make any sense. I won't give up here. I'm going to dig for answers until I'm forced to stop. I don't know how much I'll be able to learn, but it can't end here.